Welcome back. Returning to our top story, last night's Democratic presidential debate had plenty of attacks. The frontrunner and former Vice President Joe Biden found himself defending his decades-long record on everything from health care to criminal justice. Here's some of those highlights from night two.
Joe Biden told wealthy donors that nothing fundamentally would change if he were president. Kamala Harris said she's not trying to restructure society. Well, I am.
The people in this room and the Democrats watching tonight are the last best hope for humanity on this planet.
We need to do the opposite of much of what we're doing right now, and the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes masks.
The cost of doing nothing is far too expensive.
The truth about healthcare in America today is people can't afford it.
What I don't believe is that the profit motive of big pharma or big insurance companies should ever determine in our great nation whether somebody gets health care or not.
How about we be the party that's going to disrupt the status quo for working people?
This idea is a bunch of malarkey.
There's a saying in my community, you're dipping into the Kool-Aid and you don't even know the flavor.
It looks like one of us has learned the lessons of the past and one of us hasn't.
Immigrants are being scapegoated for issues they have nothing to do with in our economy.
We can no longer allow a white nationalist to be in the White House.
Mr. Vice President, you can't have it both ways. You invoke President Obama more than anybody in this campaign. You can't do it when it's convenient and then dodge it when it's not.
The president's racist rhetoric should be enough grounds for everybody in this country to vote him out of office.
If you want to compare records, and frankly, I'm shocked that you do.
The first thing that I'm going to do when I'm president is I'm going to Clorox the Oval Office.
He betrayed American families.
Let's remind the American people who we are, why we are Democrats, and why we're running for president.
For more on last night's debate, I'm joined by CBSN political contributor Antjuan Seawright. He's a Democratic strategist and CEO of Blueprint Strategy, as well as CBSN political contributor Molly Hooper. So let's start first with what stood out to you all. Molly?
Andrew Yang, actually. I mean, last night,
$1,000, right?
$1,000, yes.
Just
$1,000
being here.
Hey, that'd be nice. I'll take $1,000.
Right.
Why not? And I will definitely spend it as well. But no, I mean, he had some great zingers and was full of energy. And even after the debates, he was going strong. He went to every outlet. He was there. He was like the last one speaking with all the members of the media, and he was the first one up this morning. I don't know if he even slept, but he said a lot of things that it seemed resonated with the audience in Michigan, especially when it came to this issue. You know, both parties are focusing on immigration and immigrants coming across the border and jobs going away. And he said, listen, you know, when you talk to the people in Michigan, it's not that illegal or undocumented immigrants are taking those jobs, it's that they're being taken over by robotics and automation. Yeah. And we need to do something to fix that. And I think that, you know, Andrew Yang, as well as Marianne Williamson, surprisingly, the night before, because of perhaps their standing in the polls and whatnot, and their freedom to be non-political, if that's a word to characterize them, they can pretty much say what they think, and they talk to issues that resonate with people.
So several things stood out. Coming into this debate, we knew we were going to see a wonderful display of the diversity of this party, from age, gender, thought to race. We saw that last night. We also knew that healthcare was going to dominate the conversation, because by far it is the most important issue on the ballot next year. And it not only will it define who we are as Democrats, it will define the direction we go as a country. We also knew that the vice president was the front runner. He was going to be attacked.
And speaking of that, I mean, how did you think he did overall? I know you've got some inside knowledge when it comes to a lot of the candidates that were up there last night, but what did you think of his performance, and what are people within his camp saying about his performance?
So pre-debate, I spoke to 5 candidates who were dear friends of mine and some of their lieutenants about kind of tone, posture. I was able to help with debate prep for some. Post-debate, I spoke with 4 of them. And from between them and their lieutenants, they all said the same thing. The idea was to make sure that we tried to define Joe Biden. But when you talk to the Biden camp, they knew coming into this that they were going to have to block and tackle, as well as run the ball down the field to ensure and hold firm to his front runner status. I think many would argue that he demonstrated his ability to take a licking and keep on ticking, take a bruising and keep on cruising. Poll after poll have indicated that. But you know, the one thing that stood out to me that confused me more than anything, and I've been in this business for 15 years,
15?
is the fact that absolutely, the fact that we had candidates, the fact that we had candidates attacking the first African American president or his policy agenda, when the Democratic primary, and I've said this so many times, will be decided by people who look like me, and arguably the next president of the United States will be decided by people who look like me. But you had candidates attacking Barack Obama and his policy agenda, that arguably the most transformational piece of legislation in our history was the Affordable Care Act.
And what was really noticeable before the debate was you had Tom Steyer coming on stage, sort of like a Tony Robbins guru, running on stage. Who misses Barack Obama? Who wishes he was still here, essentially? Right. Huge eruption in the audience of applause. And then exactly you juxtapose that with this scene that unfolded, you know, minutes later of all these candidates piling on Obama's legacy, essentially.
I want to play some sound real quick, Molly. Biden was not the only person to spar with Kamala Harris. Tulsi Gabbard did too. I want to listen to what she had to say when she attacked the health care plan.
Now, Kamala Harris just talked about Kathleen Sebelius, who helped write her bill. This just pointed to the fatal flaw in her proposal. Sebelius works for Medicare Advantage, private insurance company who will stand to profit under her plan. If we're seeking to really reform our healthcare system, we've got to shut out big insurance and big pharma out of the drafting process so they cannot continue to profit off the backs of the sick people in this country who are searching and in desperate need of care.
Senator Harris, your response?
Well, unfortunately, Representative Gabbard got it wrong. Kathleen Sebelius did not write my plan. She endorsed it as being one of the plans that is the best to get us to a place where everyone is going to have access to health care in America. And when we talk about this again, I'm going to go back to Vice President Biden, because your plan does not cover everyone in America by your staff's and your own definition.
Wow. And if you remember, I mean, I was covering Capitol Hill when Obamacare, ACA, was you know, essentially going through the legislative process, which was a mess. And then after it became law, all the individuals who were implementing it, the key individual being Kathleen Sebelius, going before committees and taking a lot of arrows for, you know, some snafus that happened in the beginning. I mean, as happens with most, you know, massive programs. I mean, you're bound to have a few wrinkles here and there. But the fact that Tulsi Gabbard brought up Kathleen Sebelius, I mean, it's another attack aimed at the Obama administration.
You know, you talked about what stood out in the debate. Obviously, most people would agree, reasonable people, let me say, that Cory Booker had the best night. I think that his car was parked on the side of the road to this point because he's not gotten traction. I think he was actually able to put gas in his car to get his car down the road. He will make the next debate, and he gives people a second chance to look at him and look through him. Make no mistake, this primary will be defined by quality of life issues. And the difference between Tuesday night and last night is that you saw a laser focus on how those issues will impact certain communities, especially the African American community. Now, I will say there's a big disconnect between those of us in the bubble and those of us who are on Twitter and social media and everyday voters. And if you ask everyday voters, particularly more seasoned African American voters, they would think the attacks that came on to Joe Biden last night was bad. And that's going to make people cling closer to him. And when you attack Barack Obama, you are attacking a legacy for some people who never thought they would see that idea. And who's been running close to the Obama legacy? Joe Biden. So that strategy is going to backfire for some who were on that stage last night.
When you talk about being laser focused on the group of people, what about being more laser focused on the actual policy? Because you heard so many different voices about healthcare, which they spent, you know, the first hour really talking about in that debate.
Well, the one thing, and Antjuan, I'd love to get your take on this. Whose policy were they talking about? They're talking about Kamala Harris's. I mean, both nights. But the moderators were asking Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders to respond to Kamala Harris's plan that she put forward second night as well. And they weren't necessarily responding to Obamacare. They were responding to a plan that one of the candidates put forward. So, I mean, even though she was taking hits on a lot of sides for that and aiming her own hits at Vice President Biden, when moderators spend so much time on a policy that you put forward, you know, that carries a lot of weight, I think.
We're going to be defined by healthcare in this primary in this country. And so we're wrestling with if we're going to be a center-left party and focus on a pragmatic approach to dealing with healthcare, or are we going to be a Medicare for all and kind of take a progressive lean? The fact of the matter is, Kamala's a dear friend. Her sister is one of my best political friends. They have to do a better job of tightening up, being able to describe and make the case to the American people, while their remix of a progressive and center-left plan will demonstrate what we need to do to fix healthcare. The fact is, when we won in the 2018 midterms, take it as someone who's went every weekend since Donald Trump has been in office to make sure we have the majority in Congress, we didn't run on a Medicare for all platform. We ran on fixing and strengthening the ACA. The fact of the matter is we were successful in that. So this idea that we're going to do something different in a general election next year and bring in the coalition of voters to retain the majority in Congress and to occupy that temporary public housing unit called the White House, I think it's out of touch with some of the realities on the ground. And the CBS poll has indicated that healthcare big, but people don't care necessarily about the policy. They just want it fixed. And so I think we have to get this thing right.
But otherwise, it's so complex. It is so complex. You know what? We're going to leave it here right now, but of course you guys will be back. There's still time because the debate in September. So, you know, we'll see.
For those who make it.
Exactly. See who qualifies, see who makes it. Antjuan Seawright and Molly Hooper, thank you so much for breaking that down. Coming up.